Hello and welcome everyone back to our channel. So in today's video we're going to do some questions on C++. So in today's video we'll ask some questions. The first one has an I and II part, and then the second one I'm also going to read out to you. So the first one says, what is printed by the following? So what is printed by the following, and then we're giving the C++ code, and then we are actually going to predict what this actually going to print out in the output. So the first one is int a is equal to 0. That means initializing a, and then we have a do while loop. So when we initialize a, after that, what will this loop print? Then after that, we have the end line. The second case is the same as the first one, just that in the second case a is initialized to 20, while in the first a is initialized to 0. Right, we are going to go into them in detail. And now the second one says write a C++ program that allows the user to enter exactly 20 double precision floating point numbers. The program then prints the sum, the average, the maximum, and the minimum values entered. Okay, so that is what we're going to do in our class today. So without much further ado, let's just dive right into solving these questions. Okay, so let's begin with the first one. So let me just try to copy out this one, or let me just cut it out, and then I'll be able to do it in another page. Okay, so Control C. Okay, so let me paste this somewhere here. Let me paste it here. Okay, so this is the first one. So we're asked that what is this going to print out in the console after writing it. Okay, so let's just type it that the okay the the output of the code would be okay. So this is a do while loop. So in a do while loop, what happens first is that we have initialized a to be equal to 0, right? Okay, so after initializing a to be equal to 0 here, what happens is that it's not going to go into the do while loop. So it's going to do first, is seeing that it's going to do a C out. So this means that it's going to print out the value of a. So what is a here? A is 0, right? A is 0, so it's going to print out 0. Okay, and after that it's going to leave out some space, because we have seen some space here. This is actually like a space, so a space between this 0 and, let's say, it's going to print out another character. After that, it's now going to actually increment the value of a by 1. That's what you see in this a plus plus. So after a being 0, at this part of the line of code, we are seeing that a is incremented to 1. So a becomes 1, and then it now goes to the while part. So now a is now 1. So we're having to test while a is less than 10. So while 1 is less than 10, which indeed 1 is less than 10. So what happens is that in this do while loop, it's not going to go back into the do loop and then do what this particular loop is trying to do. So it's not going to go back, but now it's going back as a equal to 1. And so before, you know that we have a space here, so this space is going to be retained here, right? And then we're going to now print out 1. So 1 is going to now be here, and then it's not going to increment a is now 2 again. So it now goes back here, a is now 2. So 2 is less than 10. It comes again, leaves some space, and prints 2, right? It goes again back to the loop. A is 2. It comes, a plus plus is now incrementing a by 1. So a now becomes 3. It's not going to print out 3. It goes back to the loop, and then it's going to print it up until 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So in the case where a is equal to 9, as it's going to print it out, it's going to say a plus plus. So a now becomes 10. That means 9 plus 1. So in that case right now, 10 is actually not less than 10. So what happens is that this loop is going to break. So what you're going to see as the output of the code is going to just be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So let me just clean this right now. Let me just clean this thing I just did here, because I just use that for some examples or some explanation. So that's what is going to print on the output, and that is for the I part of our code. So let's go to the second one. Let me just copy it, or let me just cut it out again, and so that we can actually answer this on the next line. So let me cut it and let me come and paste it here. So we are also asked what is going to be printed on this line of code. Okay, so what is going to be printed, we're also going to say the output, the output, the output of the code. The output of the code would be, okay, so in this case right now, a is initialized to 20, so the start value of a is 20. So after that, it now goes into the do while loop. So it's not going to now see out is to print, so it's going to print out the value of a, which is now 20. So it starts off at 20, and then there is some space. So it's now going to go to this line where it's saying a plus plus. So a now becomes 20 plus 1, which is now 21. And so the value of 21 is now going to be tested in this while loop. So it's going to say while 21 is less than 10, because a is now 21. So indeed 21 is not less than 10. So this particular block of code will be equal to false. So it's going to break, and that would just mean that the output of the code is just going to be only 20. So that is that for the first question. I just hope you understand that. If you also don't, you can also ask me about it in the comment section. Okay, so let's go to the question 2. Let me just copy it also out and try to write it out somewhere else. Let me just copy it out. Okay, let me copy it out into somewhere here. Okay, so let me copy it out into this place. So we're having that write a C++ program that allows the user to enter exactly 20 double precision floating point numbers. The program then prints the sum, the average, the maximum, the minimum, and the values entered. The program then prints the sum, the average, the maximum, the minimum values entered. So we're going to do that right away. So let's start with that. So in the first case, we're going to have our libraries to be written. So since we're going to print this out, we're going to have the iostream library to be used. So we say hash, okay, the directive. So we're going to have the include iostream. Okay, so include iostream. Then we'll have using namespace, std. Okay, so since these are double precision numbers, okay, so let's actually go into the main function first. So int main, right? And then let's open the block of code. So since these are all going to be double precision numbers, so we're going to actually declare them to be double numbers. So let's have them as double. So double is the type of data we are going to use to store these variables or this data. So we have the num, and then we're going to have this num is going to be something. So since we're going to have 20 numbers, we're going to use a loop. So this num is going to be like a variable that we're going to use for iteration. So for the first up until the 20th iterations, this number is going to be the one to be taking the number from the user and then storing it into the variables that we want it to be stored. And so the second one, since we're also going to have the sum, the maximum, sorry, the average, we're having a variable which is going to be called sum. So the next variable we're going to have is the sum. which is going to be used to sum all the numbers, right? Because we are going to have to calculate the average. So the average is just like summing the numbers by dividing them by the count, okay? And though the next one we're going to have is the maximum variable, maximum value. So let's just call it max val, max underscore val. So which is going to be the variable to store the maximum value. And then also we're going to have the mean val. So the mean underscore val. Okay, so these four variables are what we are going to use in our iteration, right? Okay, so the next thing we're going to do now is to, after doing this, we're going to actually ask the user to enter these numbers. Okay, so we're going to do a see out here. So see out, we are going to now tell the user enter enter any 20 numbers. So enter any 20 numbers. Okay, so the user is going to see this and then be able to know that we are requesting for 20 numbers from the user. Okay, so after that, we're now going to look for ways to get this data from the user. So we're going to use the cin. So the cin is used to get the data from the user, and this data is going to be stored in the norm variable. Like I just said before, the norm we just declared here is going to be what we are going to use to store our variables we are going to get from the user. So after that, so we're going to do something here. Now, because we're going to be needing these variables from the user, so what we're going to do first is that, let's say the user actually enters the first one, just let's say just one number. So automatically what that means is that the minimum value will be that number, right? Also the maximum value will be that number. Then also the average will just be equal to that number also. Do you understand? So let me explain. Let's say I entered just number 6 as a number. So that means since I already entered 6, the only variable or the only data entered there is 6. That means the minimum value is still that number, and then the maximum value is still that number, right? And then also our average is also going to be just that number, because dividing 6 by 1 is also going to be that number. So what we're going to do is, first we are going to now initialize our sum, our max val, our min val to norm. That's what we're going to do. So in the second case right now, what we're going to do is to say sum is equal to norm, right? Sum is equal to norm. We're also going to say min val is equal to norm. Then we're also going to have that max val is equal to norm. Okay, so you know that these are all statements. So after writing a statement, you're going to terminate with a semicolon. So these are all just semicolons I just did here. Okay, so after that, now we're going to do an iteration that will help us to get this number. So look at, in the first case right now, we have entered the number, right? So in the first instance, we don't use an iteration. So the user just enters a number, and that number is stored in norm. You can see here now, there's no iteration for the first one. So therefore, the first number, the sum becomes norm. The minimum value becomes that first number. The maximum value also becomes that first number. So now we're going to do something here. Now we're going to use an iteration. So I'm going to say for int I is equal to 1, right? And then I'm going to say where I is less than 20, right? And then I'm going to say I plus plus. Okay, then what I'm going to do is to open the bracket for the for loop, and then I'm going to say that cin is going to be what to now use to get norm again. And then I'm going to say that sum is plus equals to a norm. Okay, so let me terminate this also. Sum is equal to plus equal to norm. Then I'm going to say something else here. I'm going to say if norm is greater than max val, right? If norm is greater than max val, so let's open the block for this if code. Then we're going to say that max val, which is the maximum value, will be equal to norm. Okay, will be equal to norm. Let's terminate this and let's end this part of the if block. Then we're also going to come again and say if norm, we're all in the for loop right now, please note, if norm is less than max val. I'm going to explain all this. If norm is less than max val, then we're going to say, sorry, not max val now, please. If norm is less than min val, not max val, please. If norm is less than min val, which is the minimum value, then we're going to say that min val is equal to norm. Okay, is equal to norm. And then we're also going to close this part of the for loop. We're also going to close this part of the for loop. Then after that, we have ended the for loop, right? So we've ended the for loop. So this part of the uh, um, curly braces is to end this if statement. This one is used to end this one. So for this for loop that we have the opening bracket here, we're also going to end it somewhere down here. So we end the curly brace, also we end the for loop here. Okay, then after that we are going to say cout, then we print the sum. So we're printing the sum. So the sum, we're going to say sum. So sum is going to be equal to the sum. So sum is equal to sum. And then after that, we say end line. So we say end L. Okay. Then after that, we have that cout. We have the average. So we say average would be equal to sum divided by 20. Okay, so sum, let's put this inside of parentheses. So sum divided by 20, and then we have it as end L. Okay, so the next one is the maximum value. So cout maximum value. So we say maximum here. Okay, so maximum, sorry, I should actually put this here. So maximum is going to be equal to max val. So max underscore val. Okay, and so we say end L. And then after that we're going to have that cout. We're going to have that the minimum is going to be something around the mean val. So we say minimum is going to be mean val. Okay, then we end line, and after that we do a return 0. So we're done with the maximum, sum, average, and minimum. So we return 0, which is for the end of the main function. So after that, we now close our curly braces. Okay, so that is that for the question. Okay, so let's go into this particular code and then let's actually understand what we're doing here. So in the first part right now, what we did is that we actually did the include IO stream, which is just because we want to print out, so we want to use the C out and the C in, so we must use the include IO stream library. So the next thing is to say using namespace std, just in a way to shorten using other operators for the std : C out. Okay, so the next thing now is to say int main. So the main function is what you're going to use to write everything in C++, so which is necessary, right? And then after that we go into declaring our variables. So we declared 4 variables here. We declared num, we declared sum, we declared max val, and we declared min val. Okay, so after the declaration, we now actually prompted the user to enter any 20 numbers, any 20 numbers. Okay, so let's say in the first case right now, the user actually in this first place now, let's say the user entered, let's say for example, the user entered let's give it say 3. User entered 3 in this phase. So what we mean here is that sum in this first place is going to be sum is going to be equal to 3. That's what this line means. So sum is going to be equal to 3. So the mean val, which is the minimum, let's just keep it there, is also going to be 3. Then the max val also is going to be 3. So the max is going to be 3 in that case, whereby the user just entered a number. So both the sum, the minimum, and the maximum is just going to be that same number. Okay, now the next line is where we are doing the iteration, where we are iterating from 1 to less than 20. So in this case right now, you can see we've initialized from 1 to I less than 20. That's just initializing from 1 to 19. So we're going to have the loop run 19 times. Okay, so in that case right now, what's going to happen is that the user is going to be asked to enter another number again. So that's why you're having this C in num again. So the user is going to be prompted to enter another number. So let's say in that case right now, the user enters a number like let's say 4. Okay, the user enters 4 there. So in this case right now, the user enters 4. So what happens is that sum is going to be plus equal to num. So you know in the first case right now, num is going to hold the value of 3. So what happens is that sum is now going to be equal to plus equal to num, meaning sum is going to be equal to adding 4 to the original number of sum, so which is equal to be sum plus 4. In the first case, sum is going to be 3, right, which is this first one in enter. So 3 plus 4 is going to be 7. So sum now becomes 7. Okay, so that's for that line of code. So what happens next? So what happens next is, say if a num is greater than max val. So in this next case right now, num is now 4. So num is now 4. So 4 comes here. So 4 comes. So we're saying if 4 is greater than, what is max val? Max val is actually, in the first case right now, max val is equal to what? Is equal to 3. So if 4 is greater than 3, yes, indeed, 4 is greater than 3. So what happens is that max val now will now have to carry the value of num. So which is the new value of num is going to be max val. So what that means is that the value of max val, which was indeed 3, will now be overwritten, and then we're going to have 4 as our new maximum value. Okay, that's for this if block of code. So the next one now we're having to say is if num is less than min val. So in this case right now, we're having that 4 is our new value of num, right? So if num is less than, so if 4 is less than, so let's go again. In this case now, min val was num. So if 4 is less than 3, so you can see indeed 4 is not less than 3. So what happens is that this block of code is not going to be executed. So min val will still retain the value, or which is the original value of 3. Do you get? And then this block of code is not going to be executed. Then we're going to also go back to the iteration and now go again. Let's say in this case right now, the new value of num, let's say the user entered a number, let's say for example 1. Okay, now the user entered 1. Now mind you, these are all just floating point number, but we're just using integers. Let's say the user entered 3.0 or 4.0 or whatsoever, but let's just use numbers just to better understand this. Okay, so now when the user entered 4 now, so the user entered, sorry, the user entered 1 here now. So user entered 1, and then what happens is that, I think I'm making everything so messy. Let me just wipe off some stuff here so that we are going to be able to understand what is really happening here. Because if I actually explain this one, I'm gonna be able to use that to explain for the other ones. Okay, so now what happens is that if the user now enters 1, so now the new value of num here, the user entered 1 here, So sum is going to be plus equal to num. So in the other case now, sum has now been 7. So we're going to say that sum is going to be incremented by what? The new value of num, which is 1. So we're going to have that sum is going to be equal to sum plus 1, which is equal to 7 plus 1, which is now 8. Okay, so we now come to this other block of code, which is saying that if num is greater than max val. So we are saying if num, which in this case 1, is greater than what you know before, is that max val was taken as the previous value of num, which is 4, right? So if 1 is greater than 4, so what happens? 1 is indeed not greater than 4. So that means that this block of code would not be executed. Do you understand? That will be escaped, and then we're going to come again to the next if block and say if num is less than main val. So in that case right now we're saying if num is now 1, so if 1 is less than, so you know that in the other block of code the main val did not execute, so it already has the previous value of num, which is 3, right? So we're going to say if 1 is less than 3, and indeed 1 is less than 3. So what happens is that this block of code is going to be executed. So what that means is that main val is now going to be equal to what? 1, which is now the new value of num. Okay, and so that is going to be happening for the numbers that the user is going to be entering. So this checks is going to be happening. We're going to have sum to be plus equal to the new value of num, and then the two if blocks are going to be checking if the number is greater than if the number is greater than the maximum value, is going to actually update the maximum value to be that number. The second one is saying if the number is less than the minimum value, it's going to be updating the minimum value with that number. So that iteration is going to be running up until for 19 times. And then what happens is that this block of code is going to be executed after that. And so if we have that, we have, let's say we have 3, 4, 1, 7, 9, 10, 12, let's say 1, let's say 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and let's just say 5. Let me just use these 10 numbers for example. Do you understand? But the user is supposed to enter 20 numbers, but let's just say these are just the 20 numbers for example. Okay, so let's just say the other 10 numbers give us a sum of something around let's say around 50, the other 10 numbers, and then these other 10 numbers are this one. So 50 plus 3 is going to be 53, plus 4 is going to be 57, plus 1 is going to be 58, plus 7 is going to be 65, right? Okay, 65, and then plus 9 is going to be 74, and then plus 10 is going to be 84, plus 9 is going to be 96, plus 1 is going to be 97, plus 7 is going to be 197, plus 7 is going to be 104, plus 5 is going to be 109. So let's say that the sum of all the 20 numbers is going to be 109. All right, and let's say it's going to be actually equal to 109. So what is going to happen here is that it's going to print that the sum is going to be 109. So in this average part is going to say what is that sum divided by 20. So it's going to divide 109 by 20, and what 109 by 20 gives is what is going to be printed here. And so in this other block of code is going to be printing the maximum value. So if out of these values now, but from what I've been saying before, I think the maximum value we're having here is say a 9. So that means that the max value is going to be holding the value of 9. So in this case, we're going to have that 9 is going to be printed, right? I'm just giving it for example. So in this case right now, the mean value out of all these numbers, we're going to see that the minimum value is actually 1. So we're going to have that the mean value is going to be 1. So this is actually the code, right, that's going to help us to ask the user to enter 20 numbers, and then after entering those numbers, it's going to check for the numbers, enter the maximum value, do the minimum, calculate the average, and calculate the sum. I hope you're understanding everything about this video. If you do, please do help me subscribe to this channel, and also help me like and comment about it in the comment section. Also help me share this video to your friends and colleagues who are also going to be benefiting from this video. Without much further ado, I will leave you to this. Do have a nice day and see you in our next video. Thank you.